What is pre-literacy? Pre-literacy refers to people who have never learned how to read or write in their own language before. Um, Many of the students I get, I would say 99% of them, are pre-literate. Many of them speak Somali, they speak Arabic, they speak Swahili, and they have never learned how to write any of those languages or how to read any of those languages. So to be learning English and to be learning how to speak it and then to be learning how to read it and write it is the most impossible of tasks, essentially, because they have no background, they have no foundation. Um, Many, I would say, Americans or any person who's been educated before and had a traditional, at least primary and secondary education, we take for granted our experience in the classroom and the fact that we can hold a pencil, the fact that we can uh, read and write. It's sort of an accepted thing here now that you know how to read and write. So it's very difficult for people, refugees especially. They come to America. They're ecstatic to not be in a refugee camp anymore, and yet they don't know how to read or write or speak English, and so suddenly they find themselves very handicapped. There's so few ways that they can function easily in this society when they're missing those really important limbs, if you will. They don't have arms and legs like us. So I think of them as almost handicapped individuals. Um, but here's the cool thing: that doesn't mean that they can't learn it, and it doesn't mean that they can't function. Uh, it just means that to learn how to speak English and how to read it and how to write it is going to take a lot longer than someone who has an educational background. Um, it means that as a teacher, you're going to have to break it down in much smaller bite-sized pieces. And you're going to learn that as you teach. You're going to see where you're going too fast. Um, and you'll see with each student if you're going slow at all. Honestly, it's impossible to go too slow, I would say, with your students who are at the foundational level. One student I have, her name is Faya Muse. She's 85 years old and she had never held a pencil before in her life. And she was very hesitant to even come into the classroom. She actually came with her granddaughter and would just stay and wait outside in a little office area. And I had to sort of coax her on into the classroom. And after the first week, she was able to sit down in the classroom and watch. And then the second week, I gave her a pencil and she sort of waved me away. And I was like, no, Five would say you can do it. And so I gave her a pencil and I gave her an alphabet book where you can trace the letters. And she didn't want to trace the letters. She just ended up trying to write her own letters in between the lines, which was great. You know, if that's all we do for 3 weeks, that's awesome. The the greatest thing as a teacher you can do to um, facilitate the growth of a student is simply to build confidence and to let them pave their own way. Um, the motivation is going in the end has to come from the student. So if they latch on to something that makes them comfortable in the first stage of teaching, I go with it. Um, but at the same time, you always want to push your students a little bit. So you never want to be afraid to do that. But the pre-literate demographic of students is the one that I teach to, and that you will find mostly in the refugee population, I would say. The It's interesting because there's no curriculum that I found thus far that's for pre-literate people to learn how to read and write in English. So the past year that I've been teaching at Somali Bantu Association of Tucson, Arizona, I've been sort of creating my own, and my hope is to write write it down and pass it along to anyone else out there who is teaching pre-literate people, because it's such an important and missed group of people. Let me see if I have anything else. Pre-literate. Pre-literate is really important. I had a girl come from the U of A, the University of Arizona, to intern with me. She was looking into English as a second language. She wanted to be a teacher. And that was great. I was so excited to have her. She's awesome. But she was really surprised at the pre-literate aspect of the class. And it will take a lot of people by surprise at the level that the class has to be taught, because the reading and writing isn't there and it doesn't come naturally at all. The students really have to rely on me completely to teach them how to read and write, and to force them to do so, because when you're, 85 or you're 45 and you have 5 children and you have mouths to feed and you're in this new foreign country, the last thing you want to do is put out your brain effort into learning how to read. So that's where the teacher comes in. You really have to push that. But they will learn. My students are living proof that they will learn how to read and write, and with little time and effort, anything's possible. So